Subscribe now. EU Debates.
Looking forward to today's meeting. Obviously, the meeting is clearly dominated by the war in Ukraine and all of the consequences that flow from that. And significant progress has been made by Member States in respect of finalising a text in terms of the 6 sanctions, which includes a ban on the importation of Russian oil, particularly in the context of seaborne oil. And obviously, we'll be further discussions on that this evening. But significant progress was made on that text, which I think would be significant when you add to that other sanctions as well in terms of more de-swifting of Sperbank, for example, a significant bank in the Russian context, and further sanctions. But the key one being progress on oil, because Russia is using the income from oil to finance its war, and Ireland is very strongly supportive of the work that has been done in relation to the 6th round of sanctions. And when I say that Ukraine essentially dominates the agenda, the importance of the liquidity supports that will be made available to Ukraine in terms of its budget requirements in the immediate sense, I think is positive news. The format and methodology of that yet to be determined, but up to 9 billion will be provided to underpin the current budgetary side for Ukraine in the coming year. But obviously there's a much larger piece of work to be done in respect of the reconstruction of Ukraine in the aftermath of the war, and that's work that's also underway at European Union level. The Repower EU strategy that's been published in advance of today's meeting is also quite significant, again focusing on reducing and eliminating essentially over time the dependency on Russian fossil fuels, with stronger targets for renewables and a broader programme around energy efficiencies and creating higher targets again for us, Member States across Europe. The other key issue is the paper and the work on food security, because the global situation around food security is a big worry arising out of the war itself, in terms of the blockade in the Black Sea, in terms of grain and so on getting to markets. And we know the Middle East and African states are very highly dependent on that food supply. And we are getting increasing warnings from the World Food Programme and others that we could be facing very, very serious issues around famine and food security towards the latter end of the year. So I do think it's very important that as Member States we focus on that also.
Taoiseach, earlier today there were demonstrators from Ukraine saying that people in Ukraine were dying while the EU was squabbling essentially about money. Is that a fair assessment? And do you think that Hungary should take a lot of the blame for holding up this package?
Well, I think the first point I would make, the European Union has been united throughout in introducing the most unprecedented set of sanctions ever as a collective union. And that has to be acknowledged. The cause of this war is the appalling decision of the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin to inflict this degree of trauma and suffering on the Ukrainian people, and also then create the consequential impacts on energy, on food and on the economy. I understand the frustrations, indeed the anger of Ukrainian people, given what they are facing, given the terror that's been waged upon them, the levelling of towns and the levelling of villages. But I do think it is important. Some countries are more dependent on Russian oil and gas than others, and so the need to get consensus is an important one to maintain unity. That said, I do believe that significant progress has been made, and there's an onus on all countries this evening, all Member States at this meeting, to ratify what has been concluded in the text, because that would represent about, in the immediate time, would have represented about 65% of all oil imports into Europe from Russia would be dealt with by this particular measure, and then technical work would have to be done on that, which would come through pipelines.
More obstacles today, this report guarantees. We've heard that essentially if he were to agree, this thing would have passed already. So, is there a particular maybe criticism of him?
Well, people take positions coming into meetings. I would appeal to Hungary and to Prime Minister Orban to support this package and to agree with this package, and I'll be using the meeting this evening to articulate our view and our position on that. We're strongly supportive. It's important to have unity, but what's important as well from the perspective of the people of Ukraine, that action results from this meeting.
Do you expect to brief EU leaders on the protocol discussions this evening, and if so, what will you be saying to them?
I don't intend to do it this evening. I have ongoing contacts with the President of the Commission and the President of the Council, and have bilateral contact obviously with Prime Ministers, but this evening is fundamentally about Ukraine and issues that emanate from the Ukrainian crisis. Energy, food and budgetary matters. Those issues are the issues that will dominate this evening.
Just on the
Pressures obviously are on the agenda. Do you expect anything to be agreed over the next few days that will have an immediate help to Irish families?
Not over the next few days. I don't see anything immediate. Obviously, there's work in terms of energy efficiency and so on, which will have an impact over time. But I think the significant element of that will be in our own domain. We've already taken very substantive measures. As I said, we have entered into exploratory discussions with the social partners in terms of how we strategically respond to the cost of living crisis, because it is creating pressures on people and on businesses. But we have to do it sensibly and in a way that doesn't chase inflation, but rather it can take pressure off people and improve quality of life over the remaining year, the rest of the year, and that means the budgetary context and the budgetary framework will be critical to that.
And the missed flight to Dublin Airport.
Sorry, 1 second.
May just went through Dublin Airport this morning and it was absolutely hellish. What's your understanding of what's going on at the minute? I know there's a meeting between the ministers and the EU. What's your understanding of the current situation?
Well, I spoke to Minister Eamon Ryan this morning. I know that Minister Hildegard Naughton and Minister Ryan met with the DEA management. It is unacceptable what has happened. It's not good enough, and people should not be treated in that way. And there will be daily meetings between the Department of Transport and the DEA, and the government is looking for a very clear plan to ensure that this type of thing doesn't happen again, and that whatever has to be done now is done to improve the operational efficiency of Dublin Airport.
Should the Army be involved? The Irish Army?
I think it's a question that DA needs to develop the capacity very, very quickly to deal with this. As I say, the answer lies within human resource management within DEA and planning and within the organisation also.
If it were to come to it, Taoiseach, are you confident that you would have the support of all 27 member states in relation to a trade war with the United Kingdom, if it came to it?
First of all, we've experienced the utmost solidarity from our EU member states in respect of the protocol and the situation in terms of Brexit more generally. And Europe at this stage, we've said to the United Kingdom that the European Union is willing to take part in proactive discussions with the EU to resolve issues around the protocol. They can be resolved. And at this stage, we're not contemplating that, but nothing is off the table in respect of whatever actions the British government may take unilaterally in respect of the protocol. And the United Kingdom government has indicated that it intends to implement legislation to circumvent the protocol. We will await that eventuality. We've made our points very strongly to the British government that unilateralism does not work in this situation, and that negotiations can resolve this if there's a will to resolve this on the UK government side. Okay, thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.